Hi there, and welcome to the second online event in the Rethink Protein Challenge. In this challenge, student teams pursue finding a cutting edge solution to accelerate the protein transition. Back in January this year, 49 teams originating from 41 universities from 18 countries and spread out over 5 continents have started in this challenge. And after 1.5 months of hard work, last week the students handed in their milestone reports in which they presented their solution. Today, we will learn which of those teams are actually going to make it through to the second round of the challenge. Only 30 teams will make it through. But before we reach that exciting moment, we have an inspiring program waiting for you. We will revisit the winner of the first challenge back in 2019, find out what the second round of the Rethink Protein Challenge is actually about, and we'll have a discussion about the role of innovation in the protein transition. So I hope you very much enjoy. But let's start. Let me introduce Fabiola Neitzel, one of the 2 members of Team Swap who won the first edition of the Rethink Protein Challenge back in 2019. Winning the challenge has had major effects on her life choices and her career thus far. And today she will give a presentation about her 1.5 years after winning the challenge. And afterwards, after we finish the presentation, she will be here in the studio online with us to answer questions about that. So let's dive right in, shall we?
Hello, my name is Fabiola Neitzel, and I'm from one of the winning teams of the first edition of Rethink Protein. Today, it's my pleasure to give a little presentation to you, the current contestants, and to tell you about my experience with Rethink Protein. My story is about silkworm protein, and today I want to tell you how I went from winning on the Rethink Protein to starting my first business. So a little bit to the topic of silkworm protein. Did you know that each year more than 250,000 tons of silkworm pupae are produced as a byproduct of silk industry in India alone? That's a massive number of insect protein, which we don't really use so far. So our basic idea was to use this silkworm pupae and process them into a protein which can be used for further industrial uses in Europe, for example, and the rest of the world. So make this protein from the silkworm pupae available. But during Rethink Protein competition, we had a lot to work on our idea. So here you can see our team. We were a team of 2. I was living and studying at Wageningen at this time, and I was studying my master's in Germany, in Gießen. So we were both master students at the end of our studies. We did our master thesis during the competition. So it was, as you might can imagine, a very stressful time, but we were very motivated and thrilled to be at the Rethink Protein competition. So 2 master students at 2 different countries. It was a little bit like now during the pandemics. So we did a lot of video chats and phone calls because we were not living at the same place. Anyway, we managed to work on the tasks, and during the competition, our idea got changed quite often. So first off, we thought, okay, there are a lot of undernourished children in India. Could we use the protein from the silkworm pupae to make something like a food supplement for malnourished children? And we worked on this idea, and we worked with the partnering companies, and they also liked it. And we were very enthusiastic to make a change for human nutrition. But then we came to the point where we found out that using insects for food is not allowed in India by law. So at this point, we thought, well, maybe we just have to stop our idea and get out of the competition because our idea does not work out. But then we thought, okay, maybe if it's not working for human consumption, maybe we can do animal nutrition. And some of the companies which were in the competition encouraged us to go into aquaculture. And they said, oh, they have a huge need for protein in aquaculture, and they're very interested in that. However, they were like, okay, if we need a sample, we need like 1 ton, and we need like hundreds and thousands of tons per year. So we thought, how should we as a little startup provide them these quantities? So also this idea we found out did not really work for us. So again, we were at the point where we thought, what should we do? Where should we go? Should we go on in the competition, but our idea doesn't really work out? Or should we drop out or whatever? And we talked to our coach, Derek. He's also coaching this year, I think. And he brought us to the idea, oh, why don't you go into the pet food corner? And yes, this was really a good idea. And we did more research on that and finally stayed in the pet food corner and wanted to plan to market our insect protein for pet food. So what I want to tell you with that, this is only an example of the target market, but we had the same story with many different areas of the idea. So if you find one idea is not working out quite well, don't be encouraged. Just look for a better way and a better option and just go on and find a way to work your idea. So after very intense month and several rounds of the Rethink protein competition, there was finally the day of the finals, and boy, we were really exhausted and really, really excited and thrilled. And I don't know how, but somehow in the end, we were one of the winning teams of the competitions. And this was really, really awesome. So we needed some days to really realize what happened to us. And yeah, right. Also, after the competition, there was a lot of things going on. We got a lot of invitations, articles were written about us. We were giving interviews. We were invited to be speakers at conferences. The Wageningen University and the team from the Rethink protein competition really gave us a lot of support and a lot of chances and possibilities to go on with the topic and to connect us to companies. So this was a very, very interesting experience, and I'm very thankful for that. So one dream we had was to use the prize money of 5,000 euros to travel to India and to watch live and see live what we thought about in the whole competition. So in the beginning, January of 2020, we could make our dream reality. And it was right before the global pandemic, so we were really lucky with the timing. And we traveled to India for, I think, like 2 weeks, about 2 weeks. And we've seen the whole silk production value chain. And we learned a lot of things about the way of the silkworm pupae. So this was very interesting. And besides the things about what we learned about our topic, we also had a great time. So it was a full success. Also, by the end of 2019, we both finished our studies. So we had both master degrees, and we had to decide how to go on with the topic. So do we make a career out of it? Do we follow and develop this topic further, or do we look for jobs? So luckily, in this phase, we just got a full-time startup scholarship in Germany. It's called Hessen Ideenstipendium. And so Anjani moved to Gießen, where I live, and we took part in this half-year program. You can see our group here on the slide, and also we had like monthly courses on startup topics, and the other time we could work on our project full time. We got an office, so this was really nice. So we could see how we could go on with our business, or I should better say our business idea, because what we learned during this phase is that it's very different if you do a theoretical student challenge and it's all like just an idea, or if you actually transfer it into a real business. So it really takes a lot to do a real business. You need to invest money. You have to see, there are risks you have to take. You have to see if it fits with your personal life plans and your life goals. It's really not so easy to actually start a business. So, and during this very intense working time where we were for the first time at the same place and we were actually like working together every day, we found out that starting a business together was not really working for the both of us, since we had two different plans for our personal life and also regarding the business plan. So, and this was like difficult to find out because we were both very enthusiastic about the topic and it started off very well. But from a perspective now, I know it's totally fine and it's totally normal if people decide not to go into a business, and it's maybe the right thing for some people, but surely not for all people. And it's fine to decide at some point, do I really want to go and do this as a full-time business where I'm fully responsible for, or do I have other plans with my life? So this is one point you really have to think about. Is this what I want to do with my life? And the next thing is you also have to develop your idea further. There are so many things that are necessary to be planned if you do a real business. So think about your idea and think about your personal life. So yes, I did the step in founding a company. I'm in the founding process right now. And my company is called Bombix. It's made up of protein and Bombix mori, the Latin name of the silkworm. And I'm just about to start this business in Germany. And we have employees in Germany and India. And our goal is to provide silkworm products to the European pet food industry as an ingredient, for example, for hypoallergenic or meat-free pet food. And important points for that are the quality management and research, and also telling customers what to do with our products. So if you like, you can check out the website. I hope it will be online by the time you see this presentation. We are just working on it right now, but go check it out in some time for more information. So, and also I thought about what advice I can give to you as the current contestants. And I mentioned some of this in the presentation already, but I want to tell you again my three main advices. And the first is, don't give up when you face dead ends with your idea. Find a better way. So I think this will happen to everyone. You think, okay, something we thought of would be a great idea, it just doesn't work out. So don't give up, just find a better way. The second is, Yeah, you have a lot of momentum right now. A lot is going on, a lot of possibilities. Make use of this and also do networking. So I chose the surfer as a picture. So surf the wave. And the third point is, yes, if you want to turn this into a business, your idea, think of it very carefully and consider your personal life and your choices, and also plan your business idea very carefully. But if you do so, I wish you all the best, and I think be brave and follow your dream. Thank you.
All right, that's amazing, right? It's super special that you could start with an idea during your time as a student and developing that idea during such a challenge like this, and then actually having the opportunity to make a decision to actually turn a business out of it. Well, if everything's going okay, Fabiola is now with us in the studio. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear
Hey,
you.
Fabiola, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Well, perfectly fine as well. Hey, we just had a look at your video. Very cool. So many things I can ask you, and probably also the participants right now in the challenge. But you quite quickly went into, hey, the silk pupae are probably a nice, interesting source of protein. But how did you actually come up with that idea? How did you find that out?
Well, I was interested in insect protein for a long time. So I did, during my studies, I did several internships at insect rearing facilities. I worked with crickets, I worked with black soldier fly, but there's like so many insects, so many possibilities. And then there was the new master program, Insect Biotechnology and Bioresources, started at Gießen University. So I moved here and did this program, which gave me the possibility to even learn more about insects for protein. And it also gave me the chance to do a semester abroad in China. And I was in China, and I was seeing insects also as a snack on markets, and I was seeing so many people living there. So I thought, okay, we can really not afford to waste protein sources that are already there. So, and this was the time when the first Rethink Protein Challenge was announced. So, what better thing to do than make use of this idea in the competition?
Ah, yeah, I see. So you have really had a personal interest, and then once the opportunity for the challenge came, you were like, let's go, let's try.
Exactly.
Awesome, awesome. So you mentioned, and that's actually quite special, but also really, yeah, really nice that you went through that. That you had to change your idea so many times in a quite short time period. Um, so you just are in the process of founding your company. What would you say are the biggest challenges right now?
So since we are doing our business like around the globe, like importing the pupate from India to Germany and to sell them, to distribute them in Europe, we need very good contacts and reliable contacts in India and our own experts there. Because right now, even like, especially during the pandemic, we cannot be there in person. So having good people over there is very important.
Ah, I see. And you do all the processing over there, I think, mostly?
Uh, uh, Both, like both. Some parts are done there, and some parts will probably be done here in Germany. It's like we are still in the process of building this up.
I see, I see. So, is pet food still the thing you're focusing on?
Yes, it's still the thing we're focusing on. So there are 10, I think about 10 million dogs in Germany alone and 14 million cats. I don't know the numbers for the Netherlands, but I think there are a lot of dogs and cats in Europe, and insects become more and more interesting for as an ingredient for pet food. So a lot of pets have allergies, or the owners want to use resources that have a better impact on the environment. So Yes, I'm still going for the pet food market.
Nice, because that's actually very nice that you already mentioned that there are so many cats and dogs in Germany alone. Because of course, when you develop ideas like these, you really have to assess your market and your market size. Of course, did you already think about that in the when you came up with the idea of or when your coach mentioned, "Hey, pet food's maybe a thing"? Did you already look at the market itself, or mainly at whether it's actually a technical possibility?
Well, we already considered different aspects of the market during the competition, but only now, like I'm doing like the actual trials and testing. So right now I'm working with the university here and with a pet food producer to do trials with dogs. And yeah, so far the dogs like the silkworm pet food. So I think we're on a good track there.
They find it tasty.
Yes.
Even tastier than, let's say, less sustainable sources of protein?
Well, I found out, I learned that dogs are very different in taste, like just as we humans. So some dogs love a specific food, other dogs hate it. So it's difficult to find a food that all dogs love. But I would say the majority of the dogs I've offered the silkworm feed so far liked it.
Cool. Hey, Fabiola, one last question. So, you already mentioned a few things in your video, but is there one tip or trick that you would still like to put out there for this year's participants?
Oh, well, I definitely wish them all the best and good luck, and yeah, that they just like have faith in themselves and go on with their idea.
All right, that's nice. Hey, thank you so much for your time and good luck with building your company Prombix further.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Good. So that was Fabiola Neitzel, the winner or one of the winners of the 2019 Rethink Protein Challenge, part of Team Swap. But right now we're going further into the program, and we're now moving on to Marta, one of the organizers of this year's Rethink Protein Challenge, and she will shortly explain what the top 30 teams are awaiting in the next round of the challenge. So let's roll the video.
Hi everybody! It's so great to see you again. First of all, congratulations with your first milestone report. You made it! And we are so amazed with the quality of your work. Unfortunately, not everybody will make it to the second round. In just a couple of minutes from now, we'll find out who are the top 30 teams. But what is the second round about it? We call it the validation round. Basically, you now have 2.5 months to find out whether your idea is feasible. And you can do it in many ways. You have submitted your validation plan in your first milestone report. We're going to help you a little bit. We have prepared a number of activities for you. The first of them is coming up already tomorrow, which is PR training. Next week, we have business model canvas consultations, followed by online speed dates. So the first moment to talk live to our online coaches. Week after, we have another round of consultation, this time with the amazing team of Startup Wageningen. They're going to answer your questions regarding business model canvas. Wow, so much in just 3 weeks from now. You're going to be very busy. On 15th of April, we have an introduction to pitching workshop, followed on 22nd of April by online consultations. That's the second round of speed dates, but now you will have a little bit more time to talk to the coaches. And then the next big deadline is coming up, 21st of May. That's the deadline for the second milestone report. And remember, you not only need to submit your report, but also update your team profile. On 3rd of June, we'll announce the finalists of the challenge. Very exciting. So please remember to check the handbook regarding the exact requirements for the second milestone report, as well as the criteria. And don't forget that it's not only about the report, but it's also about your team profile online. The second round, what the important thing about the second round is our coaches. So we have this amazing network of more than 40 professionals with lots of experience in many different disciplines who are there to help you with your project. So don't waste the opportunity, start chatting to them now and get as much feedback as possible. Make it the mantra for this second round of the Rethink Protein Challenge. Keep chatting. So everybody, lots of good luck. Enjoy the second round and we hope to see you again in the grand finale.
Marta, thank you so much for this insightful presentation. It is now time to move forward in the program. It's time to shift the gears a bit, zoom out a bit, and let's have a discussion on the role of innovation in the protein transition. This is the second episode of the Protein Shift series, and this is a recurring part of the online events in the Rethink Protein Challenge. And it's my pleasure to start it off.
Protein transition, you have really a shift from a more animal-based diet into a more plant-based diet.
That's a difficult question because I'm not really sure if we can really distinguish a protein transition or an energy transition.
As a consumer, the protein transition is something you can directly have influence on.
So, in the Protein Shift series, we invite people, experts from Wageningen University in Research and partners from our partner network to discuss everything concerning the Rethink Protein Challenge. And in the first episode, we started off the discussions in a more general sense. But in this second episode, we're going to look more at the role of innovation and the technicalities involved. And we do that with three guests here. We have one guest in the studio, Dr. Loris Pouvreau. We have Alejandro Amezquita, and I have to say this correctly, the future bio-based ingredient R&D director at Unilever, and Wim Hilbrands, project director at DSM. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start off with a short introduction. Loris, could you shortly introduce yourself?
Thank you. So my name is Loris Pouvreau. I'm a senior scientist at Wageningen Food and Bio-Based Research with a specific focus on plant protein from extraction to application in a various type of food product.
Thank you. Alejandro, could you also introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Alejandro Amezquita. As you correctly said, I lead an R&D program we call Future Bio-Based Ingredients. It's a cool name just to reflect a program that is looking at the next generation of sustainable ingredients that we want to apply across our foods and refreshment portfolio. And indeed, the whole area of alternative proteins is one of the priority areas.
All right, thank you. Wim, how about you?
Wim Hilbrands. Thanks for inviting me, by the way. I work at DSM, company which originally was in state mining, but has innovated since then into materials and into nutrition, especially. I work in the Innovation Center, where I'm especially busy with looking at partnerships and alliances with other companies, small acquisitions, but proteins as such as a area in the Innovation Center where we want to grow in, which we see as a new emerging business area for the company, and where we put a lot of attention to in the company.
All right, thank you, Wim. We're very interested in your insights. We have a few things to discuss, but let's start with innovation in a more general sense. Innovation, we think, is essential to achieve the protein transition. And however, there's no clear answer yet to what the innovations are going to be to actually make that a reality. So do we need maybe to create a plant-based product that resembles traditional meat, or shall we focus on deconstructing the traditional plate and create new dishes that are both tasty and nutritional without resembling as I said, the traditional dishes. So we have asked three Wageningen University research experts to voice their opinion about this. Let's roll the video.
I partly agree with this statement. I think that we do not really need to mimic meat for everyone, but that we really have to look at the different consumer groups. If you talk about vegetarians and flexitarians, and there's often also a reason why they do not eat any meat. So for those consumers, I think it's more important that we make something that is tasty and nice, not necessarily really replacing or mimicking meat. If you look at the group that really eats meat because they want to eat meat, then indeed it's more important that we replace something that resembles meat a lot more in terms of texture and flavor. So I don't think that we have one product that really replaces and fits all, but that we really have to make a range of different products for different consumer groups and really what they really need and what they like.
On a traditional Dutch plate you have potatoes, vegetables and meat. And in this case, I think for consumers it's often nice that the meat replacer resembles the product it replaces. But I think for the supply chain there's a big challenge to motivate and inspire people to combine foods in dishes so that they don't even miss meat. So I think the meat replacers should be a product on its own.
So our experts seem to point out that different types of solutions target different types of consumers. So what is your take on that? What is your innovation that your company is after? Let's start with Alejandro from Unilever.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And I think both opinions from the Wageningen experts are valid. The main drivers for consumers to shift into plant-based foods are really around health, environmental concerns, but also animal welfare. And whilst traditionally mainly there were vegans and vegetarians going for plant-based products, now we see this fast-growing group of consumers that are flexitarians or people that indeed want to still have the experience of eating a meat product, but more conscious about health or environment and prefer to go for a plant-based sausage or burger rather than the traditional veggie burger as we used to know years ago. So what we're doing in our company really is driving plant forward across the portfolio, not just in meat alternatives. We have very powerful brands, we have the scale and the technology, but we're not just looking at that segment of meat alternatives. As I said, we're also looking at tastemakers, vegan propositions for ice cream, also egg-free mayonnaise. So looking at the entire portfolio and transitioning into plant-based across the piece.
Thank you, Alejandro. Wim, does DSM also have such a broad approach to the protein transition?
Yes, absolutely. And I think also I do agree to what the Wageningen experts were saying. I also think there's enough space for that. The opportunity is huge at this point in time, and it will need a combination of solutions to cater for that. What I also think is that in itself as a company, you're not able to do that by yourself. A lot of the innovations which are currently occurring are occurring because of collaborations with other companies, collaborations between companies and institutes, even to the level of ideas coming from students, like in this case, taken to startups or even to companies like us to develop those further. And that is all needed, I think, to make sure that innovation can happen in this space. And as said, I think there's enough opportunity, there's enough possibility in the market for all of those solutions to have a chance.
I see. So even making it even broader than your own company. Yeah. So what would you say about using simpler animal protein alternatives such as pulses or tofu? Is that something you also focus on? Alejandro, maybe you first?
Yeah. So for example, you may be aware a couple of years ago, our Knorr brand, together with WWF, we launched what we call the Future 50 Foods report. This is a collection of diverse plant-based foods from around the world that can help boost nutritional value of meals, but also reducing the environmental impact of the food supply chain. At the start of the journey was mainly a way to inspire consumers and chefs and retailers about adopting a great variety of plant-based ingredients. But now indeed the brand wants to take this forward into innovation. So actually including some of these future 50 ingredients across a substantial part of the portfolio over the next 2 or 3 years. And this includes indeed what you call simpler alternatives, so things like beans and pulses, cereals, grains, leafy greens, nuts and seeds.
And how about DSM, Wim?
Yeah, I think we are less into those type of products, but I do think they need a lot of say solutions added onto it to become the choice for the future population. Also to make sure that they are affordable, but on the same hand tasty and nutritious as well. And that takes a bit of effort sometimes in terms of taking those simple products, but then adding a little bit of sauce onto it in order to make them the protein choice of the future.
Yeah. Laurice, you're hearing all these things. As a protein expert, what do you think?
No, I fully agree that I think what we should look at is local sourcing. So trying to look what kind of source of protein are grown in your surroundings, to not have to import source of protein from South America or from China. So looking around you and make the most of it, and it can be from pulses, which are grown naturally already in Europe, for example, but also in protein from green leaves, from side stream of existing industry. I think it's very important. So looking at what you have and make the best out of what you have.
Oh, that sounds like very good advice. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about creating plant-based alternatives to meat and dairy. It is often mentioned that those products are less tasty and nutritional than the animal-based products. But so what are the challenges mainly in making tasty and nutritional plant-based products? Could you give maybe some examples? Wim, let's start with you.
Yeah, there is quite some challenges with regard to mimicking animal protein. A number of the animal proteins are really very good, to be honest. And they are very nutritious, like milk proteins. They are very functional in certain cases. If you want to mimic that really, that is going to be difficult. If you look at things like gelatin, is an animal protein, but it's unique in its way of gelling foods. If you look at the meat taste and the meat color, imparted by a protein called hemoglobin, very difficult to get out of any plant, basically impossible to get out of any plant. So from that angle, there are certainly a couple of, say, proteins which are very difficult to mimic because they are so good in the animal part. I think we, in that sense, also have to look indeed at plant proteins which could be different, which maybe are in a different way very functional and very nutritional, but maybe not precisely mimicking the animal proteins, and therefore creating indeed some alternative dishes which in the end have the same say quality towards consumers as the current animal proteins have.
Mm-hmm. Alejandro, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. For us as a product-facing company, it is a big challenge actually to develop superior plant-based products. You may crack, for instance, something like texture, but then that comes at the expense of cost or clean label, or indeed if you're trying to improve the environmental sustainability footprint of the product, then you may find ingredients that are less sustainable than others. It doesn't mean that the plant-based meat and dairy products are less tasty or nutritious than their animal counterparts. It's true that the animal proteins are complete proteins, but for us, nutrition is a non-negotiable, and in any innovation brief, we aim to achieve what we call the higher nutritional standards, and that's certain levels of salt and sugar and saturated fat, and also constantly ongoing programs of renovation projects to reformulate existing products that are not meeting those standards yet. Taste is one of the biggest challenges, and I think Wim already alluded to some of the difficulties in replacing some animal proteins. A classic example is replacing, for instance, egg protein as a binder in burgers. You might find specialty plant proteins or some hydrocolloids, but then again, that brings formulation on cost or clean label challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges that remain for all the food industry is still flavor. A lot of the plant proteins bring some off flavors from the plant itself. And so that makes it very difficult at the moment for everyone to achieve that superiority in flavor.
All right, thank you. So let's say we zoom in shortly on one type of product. Let's say vegan cheese. Could you name an example what makes making vegan cheese resemble animal milk-derived cheese so hard? Alejandro, maybe you first. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, wasn't sure if you were asking me or Wim. Cheese is not in our portfolios. I'm not per se an expert in this, but I understand that the challenge is really to give the stretchiness and the mouthfeel and the texture that you find across the whole spectrum of the very different cheeses you find around the world. And that undeniably comes from the functionality and the properties of casein or the actual milk protein that has been traditionally used for making cheese. And as I understand, there's at the moment no good alternative in the plant protein world. As Wim already mentioned about animal identical proteins that are not necessarily coming from the animal, so you could think about, and perhaps this is one of the areas where there's more promise on technologies such as precision fermentation or cellular agriculture, where you try to produce an animal identical protein through fermentation processes. And maybe this is an area where those type of processing routes will find a good way to solve a consumer problem, which is making a good vegan cheese.
That's perhaps quite a nice bridge to Wim, because I know that DSM is quite involved in, enzymes for cheese. Do you have anything to add on that, Wim, maybe, what Alejandro just mentioned?
Yeah, with enzymes for cheese, you also don't get there, to be honest, in the plant-based world. So I do agree with Alejandro that you really need a casein type of protein, which probably needs to come from fermentation. The other challenge basically is taste in that sense, and that is something which for cheese is also very, very specific. It not only actually touches on protein, it also touches on fat and other components in such a product like cheese. So I would, in that sense, if it doesn't work with fermentation, with precision fermentation to make a good casein, I would tend to say don't go to vegan cheese with plants. Try to make something else out of it.
That's quite a clear advice. Laurice, do you know whether this is possible or not already?
To do vegan cheese, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, there is some vegan cheese available, of course, but as I agree with Alejandro and Wim, is that they are not protein-based to some extent. Protein are there, but they are not the structuring element of the cheese. The starch, for example, which is quite present, is the one which is gelling, so to give the consistency of the cheese. So I think the main challenge that you are facing with plant or vegan cheese or vegetarian cheese is that you need an ingredient, a protein ingredient, which is highly soluble and which also is able to form a gel upon heating and acidifications during the fermentation. And it is a challenge. But I would not say that there is no possibility there. I think there is room to improve this part by improving the functionality of the protein and by also making blends of protein. I think it can really help. And also to use less refined ingredients. One point which is also a problem is that dairy alternatives in terms of flavor are more difficult than meat alternative, in the sense because of the structure of the dairy alternative, so yogurt or cheese, is that the flavor are more perceived during heating. So it's something that also needs to be tackled, the flavor profile of the plant ingredients.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for your answer to the audience. If you were doubting a little bit that if we had experts in the building, well, we absolutely do. Let's move on to the next subject. So at the moment, soy and pea-based products dominate the market, and we have asked our experts from Wageningen University Research again to share their perspective on that. Do we need to explore new sources of protein? Let's roll yet another video.
Yes, I do agree with this statement. I think what we see now is that we rely on about 2 or 3 protein sources with the food products that we at the moment sell. And you already see that the companies that sell those proteins actually cannot really deliver what is asked for. So I think we need to do 2 things. One is to increase the amount of the proteins at the moment that we use, so the currently used protein sources. But also secondly, to exploit a lot more the proteins that we are not using yet and that are actually maybe also even more interesting.
I agree. I think that in the Netherlands, if you look at the plant side, you have really limited sources of plant proteins. And I think that we need in the future, in order to enable protein transition, to create new crops and therein new varieties that are better adapted to Europe and to the Netherlands. I also think that we have to explore both aquatic and terrestrial resources, and of course also microbial resources.
So our experts seem to agree with this statement that it is time to look beyond soy and pea. So Wim, let me ask you, what are the other alternative protein sources that DSM is exploring at the moment?
Yeah, we are looking actually at the whole range from different plant sources to fermentation sources up to cultured meat, actually, as a potential for the future. Well, I think they are indeed all relevant. What I think is especially also worth mentioning is a couple of critical factors into that. One is certainly cost also, and something which is good to mention in terms of that what really will be the winner is also something which can be produced at cost, can be scaled up also, and not just be a local product with a local variety. So it needs a couple of, say, economic elements as well. And that, for instance, to take cultured meat as an example, is still a way to go, probably. But certainly that also might be a possibility for the future. So I think all of them could potentially be sources, and we're all looking into those.
All right. And Alejandro, how about Unilever? And maybe more precisely, do you think that unicellular agriculture will ever play a role within your company in the future?
I mean, we're open to a diverse palette of protein sources, and in the short term, I think the name of the game is really about diversifying plants. But I think the next step logically are the microbial proteins that are already closer to the scale and the cost, as Wim said, that make it more affordable and scalable for the food industry. So things like single cell protein perhaps are a little bit more advanced than the cellular agriculture or the more sort of far in the future technologies. So we were open really to diversity of proteins as long as they meet 3 criteria. We looked at cost and scale, as I just mentioned, and Wim already alluded to that. We also, of course, look that they bring superiority to our products in terms of taste, in terms of clean label, functional diversification. And of course, the third and important aspect is both that is good for people and planet, so that not only they're nutritious, but that we're not introducing new sources of allergens or any other food safety risks. But at the same time, that indeed they help us move or shift the needle in terms of environmental sustainability impact.
All right, thank you. So let's name a few more controversial alternative protein sources to make it a bit more specific. Wim, you briefly mentioned it. What about insects? What about cultured meat? What is your take on it?
Well, I do believe that they will come sooner or later. They might be controversial. I think it's also something which we need to explain. Well, what are the advantages of those sources? Where can they specifically add benefit? In insects, you see already that, especially towards animal nutrition, it's seen as a very viable protein source. And actually, that also helps. So if insects are being fed to animals, and in that sense, they don't have to be fed with plants, which can be then used for humans, it also helps the protein availability in that sense. So I think with a good explanation, that's one. The other thing which I think is obviously they need to be safe, and that's something which specifically I think is important anyway in nutrition and which should be guaranteed. The third aspect really is high quality. It should have a true value, additional value in the market. And then I also believe if those three aspects are covered, that even the more controversial protein sources can have its place.
I see. And Alejandro, anything to add on that?
No, I think we covered it very well. I think it's down to the consumer, right? Is what they prefer, and perhaps in the near future, people will feel more comfortable with what they're familiar with, so they might understand better plant proteins, or I'm used to eat rice or potatoes or soy or peas, so they will be more comfortable with that. And things like insects and cell-based meat will be more of a niche type concept. But I also think that the younger generations are far more aware and continue to be more aware of the impacts of animal production and agriculture in the environment. So I think as we move forward towards the future, I think they will find better places or say broader application across food products.
Okay, Loris, very complete answers.
No, I don't really have anything at least much to add. I think I do agree that the younger generation or generation to come will be the answer, or at least will be more used to plant-based food in general, and maybe new source of protein, more open to it than I am, or the generation older than me. But I think also cultured meat will bring a different type of consumer than plant-based food. I think it does not address the same consumer target. And I think there is a place for a lot of different products in the future, depending on what the people are expecting or want.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so one last question to wrap it up. The protein transition concerns an interplay of all types of changes, not only technicalities as we just discussed, but also the consumer perspective. Consuming more sustainable sources of protein must really become part of our everyday life, so to speak. And Alejandro, to ask it to you, what would you name the most important factor for consumers to make it a habit to consume more sustainable sources of protein?
So I think that's the holy grail question, right?
Yeah, right. But
I don't think it's a question of if it's going to happen. I'm sure it will happen, but it's more about when and how soon this will happen. As I said, there's this awareness about the transformation of the food system, the impact of climate change is very much becoming commonplace across consumers. I would say, and I think Wim already alluded in the previous question, it is about the communication aspect. So good innovation, but also next to that, good communication to the consumer. Taking a multi-stakeholder approach. This is not just about the food industry. This is really about everyone being an activist and really advocating for value chain collaboration, innovation, and systems leadership. And I think emphasizing that whatever the innovation and communication strategy is for any company, it should be done responsibly and also in an evidence-based manner, so we don't feed the misinformation agenda.
I see. Good innovation and good communication. That seems like a very nice ending sentence of the discussion. Thank you so much for your presence. Keep up the good work. And thank you for your time. I wish you a very nice day. In the third episode of the Rethink Protein Challenge, we will discuss more about the consumer perspective in the protein transition. So be there to check that out. You don't want to miss that. For now, it's time to move on. Let's introduce the people in the committee who've actually made the choice in the teams who are going through to the top in the second round of this challenge. So now we're getting really close to the part that all the participants have actually been waiting for, the announcement of the top 30 teams. The students have been doing their utter best to be part of the top 30 teams and to develop all those ideas, but it has been up to the committee to actually make that decision. So right now I'm joined here by Sergei Smetana, the head of the food data group at DIL, the German Institute of Food Technology. Sergey, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes. How are you doing?
Perfect. I'm pretty good.
Nice.
Hope you do as well. I
Yeah,
heard.
very much. I'm having a lot of fun here in the studio. Hey, you have been part of the committee and you've read, well, I guess, most, if not all, of the reports. Was it a hard job to make this decision?
It was extremely hard, and as you know, there were quite a lot of submissions, and well, all the jury members. It was a tight schedule, I should tell, and it was a bit stressful, considering that we all work and we do a lot of activities, and we didn't want to score any participants, so it was tough.
I can imagine, because you work hard, but the students also have worked very hard on making this happen, of course. Hey, what did you and the other members of the committee find of this year's entry? Were they any different to the ones of 2 years ago?
Yeah, I was quite lucky and luxurious, I could say, that I was able to participate as a coach last year. And I can tell that not only the number increased of the submissions, but also the quality went up. So, you know, the first round went very well. I mean, the first competition, and also people could see what are the winning ideas, you know, what they should target. There was kind of pre-coaching, I would say, for the whole competition. So people could really do much better. And many participants, many submissions actually did very, very well and excellent. So it was a big surprise and pleasant surprise, I should tell.
Yes, of course. That's super nice that the quality is going up and up and up. I mean, that's what we want to see, of course. Hey,
yeah.
Could you, are there solutions that surprised you or even inspired you?
Yet, even despite that we already had the first competition, but also during the second one, also what jury members pointed out that solutions came not only about just pure ideas, and there are quite a lot of solutions which went to the prototyping area. It could be pointed out as, okay, these solutions can lead to the specific products or solution or practical solutions. Also, another thing which I would like to point out is that some submissions targeted not just development of ingredients, but rather complex, systematic platform-oriented solutions. That was quite an interesting insight, quite an interesting surprise as well.
Nice, that's very interesting. Hey, of course, you also had to make the decision to, to drop a few teams that they could not continue in this challenge. Is there something you would like to say to those teams as a take-home message?
Well, this is a very hard point, actually, to tell teams who are not going to make it any encouraging words. But I would like to cite a teacher, my old-time advice when I got advice from a teacher who said, okay, you might not go through, you might not win the competition, but you would never forgive yourself if you wouldn't have tried. And once you tried, put your best in, your soul, your own feeling is much, much better. And that's something to take out. You guys tried, you did your best, you put everything you could. Well, everything else may be luck as well.
Okay, hey, Sergey, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I wish you a very nice day. And, at this point, we should actually announce it, right? Why wait?
Yeah, good luck.
Hey, thank you so much. Okay, so now we're getting really close. At this point, as I mentioned, we're just bullying you by taking so much time before actually making the announcement. So, are you ready? Here we go. Impressive. Congratulations to all the teams who actually made it through to the second round of the challenge. Be sure to celebrate today and get back at it tomorrow. It's always nice to celebrate, but yeah, you have to get at it to actually become part of the finals. Don't forget to aim for the stars, though. Your ambition and your creativity is the only thing holding you back. To the teams who didn't make it, don't feel bad. You've tried. Sergey mentioned it. Trying is one thing. I would say take the feedback that you have received up till now and be sure to use that in your future projects. I would say we are getting pretty close to closing off this event. The announcement of the finalists will happen on the 3rd of June. In the meantime, you can follow the Rethink Protein Challenge on social media on www.duurzaamnieuws.nl and in magazine The World of Food Ingredients to stay updated on everything concerning the Rethink Protein Challenge. I would say don't forget, on the 3rd of June, again, we have the announcement of the finalists, and then we'll also have the 3rd episode in the Protein Shift series, where, as I mentioned, we will discuss the consumer perspective of the protein transition. We hope to see you there. For now, thank you so much for watching. Good luck and goodbye.